You can hear us online. Hi, Dave. The agenda pack with papers is available via ModGov or directly from the council website from the link which was sent out to members. When I invite someone to speak, could you clearly state who you are for the benefit of anybody who's listening to the meeting so they can identify who is speaking, and ensure that you use the microphones if you are in the room. I also warmly welcome members of the public and media who are joining us today. This meeting is being recorded by the council. Finally, as agendas are now viewed electronically, could I kindly request that members and officers refer to page numbers from the published agenda pack to assist all present in finding the appropriate information. And in respect of housekeeping, there is no expected fire alarm, but should this happen, please follow the Democratic Service colleagues and they will lead the way out into the car park at the rear of the building. So welcome to the Climate and Place Scrutiny Committee. Jamie, have we got any apologies, please?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, committee. We've received apologies from Councillor Cravis, for whom Councillor Lovell is meant to be substituting. He's not here yet, Chair. We've also received apologies from Councillor Martin and Councillor Boyden, and committee member Councillor Bradford is online.
Thank you. Can we move on to the minutes from the meeting that was held on the 23rd of October, please, and to approve them? Just opening mine up, Dave, but you go ahead. Yes. Yes, please go ahead.
Whoops, thank you. There's some comments there attributed to me on digital transformation. I'm certain that wasn't me. I have an idea it may have been Henry, but in any case, I'm sure it wasn't me.
Okay, item 10.
15.
Yeah, I'm looking on the.
It was about IT systems for planning.
This is the Councillor Mansell then shifted focus to the council's digital transformation efforts. That paragraph.
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody else own that? Yeah, we'll go back and check the recording. Thank you very much. We'll check it. Could have been Councillor Martin. He'll ring in and tell us it's not, perhaps. These are indeed very long minutes from a very long meeting. So I hope you've had a chance to look at them. Do I have any more comments on the minutes, or can I sign them? Presumably I can sign these off pending that investigation, can I? Yeah. Okay, we're running through them. I'm not going to take them a page at a time. We'll be here all morning. You need to have looked at them. All right, I'm going to sign them off then. Thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interests. Anybody particular interest pertaining to the agenda? No, thank you. Agenda item 4, public question time. We have a statement received by Taunton resident Miss Lucy Haynes and Pastor Judith Butler from Taunton branch of the Kingdom Faith Church will be reading out her statement. So I trust we've looked at Lucy Haynes' question. Do we have a response for that? Do I need to get back to her? We don't normally have public questions, do we? Do I need to get back to her on this?
Well,
yeah, thanks, Mark.
yeah, thank you, Chair. I confirm that the service has received the questions. They are, I think, comments and views on the proposals, and we will take those into account in coming to the final conclusions. I don't think there's a response that we could particularly give today to those points, but we will take them into account.
No, the debate will no doubt bring some of those points into focus. So, Pastor Judith Butler, please. You've officially got 3 minutes.
As pastor of a local church that would be affected by the proposed Sunday parking charges, I'm asking the committee members today to take the results of the public consultation to heart. The findings of the public consultation are overwhelmingly in disagreement with the proposals. Almost 93% either disagreeing or strongly disagreeing. And I really trust that the Scrutiny Committee will take due consideration of the weight of public opinion. Our congregation of about 200 people, along with many other neighbouring congregations, use the multi-storey car park, High Street, Crescent car park throughout the week, and obviously on Sunday mornings. Our Sundays, we regularly draw people in from Bridgewater, Yeovil, Chard, Ilminster, Hemyock, Tiverton, Wellington, and Langford Budville, and even as far as Minehead, who come not just to attend the church, but then to do their grocery shopping and have lunch or shop in general in the town. Whilst our services last probably 2 hours, the window of use for our building on Sundays is from 8:45 to 1, which would mean 5 hours paid parking for many people. I'm hugely concerned that those costs will prove prohibitive, and should they still pay and choose to attend, will certainly prevent them from remaining in Taunton for lunch and shopping. But the knock-on effect on the planned Sunday charges is far greater than the individual pockets knock-on effect. As a church, some of our community events we currently provide free are youth work, money coaching for courses for people in debt, a weekly parent and toddler group, and our fortnightly baby bank, which provides free nappies and wipes for local people and low-income families. No questions asked. To run Baby Bank alone costs £425 a month, which is generously provided by our church members. So should some Sunday parking charges be implemented, the natural conclusion would be available funds to run such projects as Baby Bank would be greatly reduced, thereby subjecting those who are already in great need and find other means of help, by which are few and far between. I can only give you the details of what we do as a congregation, but I know many wonderful churches in Taunton are providing valuable services, which will be greatly impacted by the proposed charges. I understand the finances are in challenge and can appreciate at first glance charging parking might gain income. However, I firmly believe the knock-on effects to services, businesses and hospitality sector will be irrevocably damaging and bring decline to the area. If we remove parking charges on the Saturdays coming up to Christmas in order to draw people into the town, I fail to understand why we don't encourage that throughout the year, 1 day a week. These proposals will affect every sector of our community, social enterprise, business, and well-being. Please vote against.
Thank you very much for that point, and very well made. And actually, I think you were within the 3 minutes after all. I welcomed you to stay for the meeting, and you are still welcome to stay. But looking again at the agenda, I've realised, been reminded that it's not till agenda item 7. In which case, you've probably got time to get home and watch it online if you wish. So, but thank you for coming, and all your points will be noted. Thank you. We can move on to agenda item 5, and this is the Scrutiny Climate and Place Work Programme. And if we can get that one up, I'm being invited to take you through this. Could you do that, Jamie? That would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, today's meeting committee is an extraordinary meeting, so we have the meeting that was already scheduled in a couple of, so it's 2 weeks tomorrow, 4th of December. And we have a fairly chunky agenda currently scheduled for that. The lead member report for Transport and Waste, Councillor Wilkins's report will be coming. And obviously one of the other items that we've been keen to get an update on at the committee is the M5 incident management, which I know Micah Dow-Jones has been working hard with external colleagues to arrange that, so they will be coming as well. So yeah, please ensure that the 4th of December is in your diaries, and then obviously we've got the meetings heading on into January and March. As always with our committee, we have quite a list of items to be added to agendas, but obviously happy to open the discussion to members for anything else that they would like to see added at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Open to the floor. Dave. Councillor Mansell.
Thank you. Page 34 for our next meeting, which is 4th of December. We've got climate vision down. Great. Very pleased to see that report and the inclusions. Afterwards, though, it says going to executive November, December. Can I have assurance that it will be coming to scrutiny first, which is the sensible manner? It doesn't make a lot of sense to go to executive and then for executive to for scrutiny to comment afterwards, which we all know is not how things should be. Obviously, perhaps one other further point. We've got an awful long list of items still to come. I do feel quite disappointed. You know how many really important things we've had on our agenda for a year or more. We're not getting through the business. So it's just a general comment. I'm certainly not expecting a response to that, but I do think it needs to be noted that somewhere along the line there is not the capacity for this council to be doing what it should be doing, and this long list of important items is one example of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. I would agree with your points on that. It's been very disappointing that a number of issues that we bring forward are not able to be reported on for very often very good reasons. But it doesn't augur well for the combination of this committee with the Communities Committee next year, when the agendas and the business will be even more demanding, I have no doubt. Does anybody else want to comment on that point? Would you like to make another comment, John?
Yeah, it was just on the
Councillor
work programme.
I'm calling you out for the people online, Councillor Woodman. Yeah.
No problem at all. No, I was just wondering the point that Councillor Mansell made about there is no point in having the scrutiny after the decision's been made and the recommendation to it. But I just wondered what the scrutiny committee's thoughts were on scrutinising the implementation of decisions and scrutinising how those decisions were taken. Is there any place for that in scrutiny, or is it just a scrutiny body that recommends things to the decision moment?
I think I'd answer that. No, there's always a follow-up. Things that could come up before us, often before and often afterwards. I think keeping a check on it, and as we're doing now, is the important thing to make sure that things don't get lost, as they have done sometimes. Yes, you're welcome to come back.
It was only that it was said, the comment was there is no point in having a meeting afterwards. I was just saying there is a point in having a meeting afterwards because you can scrutinise the implementation and how that decision was made.
I think Councillor Mansell would agree that follow-up is good as well.
Clearly so, but we all know it's far easier to build something right to start with than build something and then say, oh, we've got it wrong. But absolutely, we should be about looking at decisions afterwards. And can we just go back to the question I asked? Can there be assurance that the climate vision will be coming to scrutiny before to executive, because that looks in doubt from the forward plan that we've got?
Yes, Jamie.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. I've just had a look at the Executive Forward Plan and I can't actually see it listed on the Executive Forward Plan at the moment. So I'm just contacting colleagues who look after the Executive to clarify that. But I think that's probably a historic note on our work programme from when it was first entered onto the system, but I will double check that with colleagues and hopefully come back with you by the end of the meeting.
Thank you. Henry Hobhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is about the sinkhole in Castle Carey. It's been there 18 months as a sinkhole, and it's been there 4 years as the road started to collapse 4 years ago. We went through a stage of the highway engineer, who is extremely competent, being told by legal they had to find out the reason that the sinkhole had occurred. We're now going to end up with the lights having cost us more than it would to mend the sinkhole 18 months ago, without any fundamental having happened on that sinkhole at this point in time. I worked on the railways for 20 years, and if there was a situation where you had a very dangerous thing like a landslide, the railways have an emergency fund, and with that emergency fund, the dangerous point are dealt with, and then they sort out the situation afterwards. I would like to ask the question about why we as a highway authority don't have some sort of emergency fund to deal with problems immediately they occur, as opposed to why they continue for what is basically 4 years. And I'd like to call it in, Mr. Chairman, please.
You'd like to call it into this committee?
Yes, please.
Okay. Could we minute that, please? Let's note that, please, and ask to call it in. Hayward, Councillor Burt.
Just in addition to that, carrying on from what Henry has said, can we make sure when we do that, we actually have information on how many times this has happened? Because I'm aware in my own ward that there's been a year past, and we have spent £168,000 on lights, and we need to think about how many times we're doing this across the county.
Yes, I think that's noted, and I think it's perfectly legitimate to bring that to this committee. I'm getting a nod from Mike O'Dowd-Jones.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the particular issue is known to me. I could give you a quick answer now, but if you would prefer to go through it in some detail and talk about principles that raises, I'm very happy to do that as an agenda item. That
certainly is what this committee is for, isn't it? Rather than talking about individual cases. But I take this the case triggers the policy, doesn't it? So yes, Councillor Cook will.
Yeah, just a question on the call-in process. That was all. Can we just find out exactly, is that the normal way we do call-ins?
I think,
or is that just
I think the phrase call-in there is a misnomer. It's not a call-in as in it's post-decision. It's more a request to put it on the forward work programme, because a call-in has to be taken on a decision that has just, a call-in is effectively referencing a decision that's been taken. I'm not being a pedant here, so no. I just want to say but it's more about asking to add it to the forward work programme, I think.
Okay. Jamie Jackson.
Councillor Mansell, the climate vision is down to go to exec in March.
Thank you. And just in case, I hope we'll be looking at the outcome tracker next as well.
Now, you mean?
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So I thought you meant in March. Okay. Can we look at the outcome? Any other points on the matters arising? Okay, let's move on to the outcome tracker. Dave, you presumably have something to say about that, so I'll let you go first.
Yep, clearly, I have. Very pleased to see our outcome tracker back. I think, really important in terms of keeping a record of what we're doing, and importantly, keeping a record of what's happening as a result of decisions we're taking. Not so much decisions, recommendations. So on the fourth page, it is a question, but so this is under, I think it's about EV charging. It's got that we've requested a task and finish group. Now maybe we did in the dim and distant past. I will admit I've forgotten. And actually, to be honest, I've got doubts whether we have called for a task and finish group, but it is a question checking whether that's real. If it is, what's the intention of that task and finish group? It's not sort of indicated there, but I have doubts that we planned it. I've got another point. Shall I do that now as
Yes, do the second point, and I'll bring Richard Wilkins in, Councillor Wilkins in on that first point.
Okay. So, and the other one is also on EV charging, but later on in the outcome tracker on page 12. What meeting was it? It was, well, anyway, whichever meeting it was, fairly recent. There was a question asked, which I'd expect to be going in the outcome tracker, asking about the 25% of charging points which were going to go into, and I forget the phrasing fully, low demand rural areas. And we did ask about how that was defined. Now, we've had some response, which I think should be noted. My recollection is it's still been left a little bit uncertain. I don't think it got completely closed off, and it's quite important understanding how, because it was meant to be, it's a contractual mechanism. So, but the main point I'm making is I just think it should be recorded in the outcome tracker. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Wilkins, would you like to respond?
Yes, thank you, Chair. On the task and finish group, indeed, there is a task and finish group. It's an officer-led task and finish group, or an officer in completeness task and finish group, and I believe it's met on I think 3 or 4 occasions, but we do have a member of the task and finish group in the room, so I will hand over to Matthew Prince to just update whether they have indeed met and what progress to date is going on.
Matthew.
Thank you, Matthew Prince, Transport Policy. Yes, we have met. It's a group of highway engineers as well as policy people and our EV team. We're actually meeting again in 2 weeks' time, a week's time. So it's regularly met. It's met about 3 or 4 times. There are a lot of, as I'm sure you're all aware, there are quite a number of issues to try and bottom out before we come back with a proposed pilot, but we're getting close. We've made sure we've bid for the money that is available from the government fund. So that bid has gone in and in time, and it's gone in. Fortunately, they didn't want to detail. They just wanted us to say generally what we were going to do. So we have time to actually work out the full detail. We are anticipating bringing it back to scrutiny and the various committees to go through in the very early new year, if we can fit it onto your schedule. If not, it'll be the following one. But we are all guns blazing.
Good to hear. I'll let you come back on that one, Dave.
Thank you. I do remember we were told at the meeting about the officer task and finish group. I have to say, for me at least, it's clear this should not be on our outcome tracker. It's scrutiny task and finish groups. This is about what scrutiny is asking to do and what scrutiny is doing. This is not a record of what officers are doing. So it shouldn't be on the agenda because it's clearly just causing confusion. But very pleased to hear about the task and finish group and really look forward to your report, and great to hear that you're moving ahead well. Thank you.
I'll take advice on that, but I've got a feeling that Councillor Mansell is probably right, as he always is. Can't be helped. Henry Hophouse. Oh, sorry, just before I go on, there was a second part of your question. Has that been answered?
Well, hopefully it will be noted, and it was about the 25%. So hopefully if that can be added to outcome tracker when we next see it.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Hophouse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On Monday, I had a meeting with my highway engineer about the state of the roads in Castle Carey. When I asked when the sweeper was going to be able to be organised for the one sweep we're supposed to have in the autumn, I'm told that they have a communication problem with the staff at Loughton, and that they have to send emails to book the sweepers for both the pavements and the road, and that they are not in communication with the system that the highway uses. Now, I would probably argue that scrutiny should be dealing with this interface problem, but not in the way that the highways thinks they need to deal with at the moment, because the Richard's in charge of highways, the sweepers are under Frederica. And it would be my opinion that if you're going to have a team that is supposed to be looking after our highways, it should be complete, not in bits.
Okay, I'm sort of trying to work out how that fits into the outcome tracker, to be honest, Henry,
Well,
but
infrastructure and transport highway service was members have resolved to set up a task and finish group to review the highways and transport service communication interfaces.
fair enough. I'll give I'll give Mike O'Dowd-Jones a chance to come back.
Thank you, Chair. So it feels to me like that's a very detailed operational matter that's probably quite easily resolved by the service looking at it and coming up with a response as to what's happened there and whether there's any opportunity for changing it. So I'm happy to take that forward outside of the committee process. I think the item in the tracker is around our general communications with customers, and I think concerns over the years about how that's gone. We've undertaken a number of improvements over the last 18 months or so. So I think there's a much bigger picture around how we generally communicate as a service with our customers and stakeholders, and that was what that was intended to be. And we're very happy to do that presentation to the committee at an appropriate time.
Thank you very much. Okay. Further points on outcome? No, in which case, to summarise, thank you for your notes and minutes. These matters will be minuted for the next meeting, and I would make special request to the officers that these things that are brought, and they try to are brought up, that we remember to converse about when we have our pre-meets, because it's very easy for these things to slip under the radar in the matter of general conversation. So thank you very much for that. Okay, I'd like to move on then to agenda item 6, which is the local transport plan, consultation, outcomes and recommendations. I'm inviting Mike O'Dowd-Jones, Service Director for Infrastructure and Transport, to introduce the item, who will in turn invite Matthew Prince to come along. And thank you, Matthew. Mike.
Yeah, I think I'll just do a very quick introduction to say that obviously the local transport plan is one of the key statutory documents of the council, setting out how it deals with transport policy in the transport system over a long period of time, and we've done a great deal of work to prepare this latest iteration of it. It hasn't been updated for many years, so it's a great opportunity to bring it right up to date in terms of reflecting the latest policy nationally and locally. So we've run a consultation on the draft policy, and Matthew has got a presentation and information for us about the outcome of the consultation. Obviously, there's a lot of information in there, so hopefully Matthew can give us an interesting run through of what was said. The matter will then go to the further formal decision processes. So this is an opportunity really just to comment on the findings and input into the further decision-making process.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you. Richard, Councillor Wilkins, did you want to say anything before I speak?
I'm sorry, Richard, were you wanting to do an introduction? Do go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to bring to your attention that the draft copy of the local transport plan did come to this committee back on the 17th of February. And you did recommend that it goes to consultation, which it has now done. That consultation ran from the 1st of July to the 28th of September, which is a considerable period of time. for a consultation. The reason for this is that we felt that during the summer period, many parish councils do not meet, and we were very keen that they had the opportunity to put their input into it. And as a transparent council, we felt that that was the right thing to do. Just to remind everybody, this is a policy document, and it doesn't pick up on individual schemes and things that maybe people would like to see in their particular areas. Whilst it does look at Somerset as a whole, it really does celebrate the differences in place and area within Somerset. And I think that's very well picked up in the document. On that, I think I'll hand over to Matthew for a more rounded explanation of what's come out of the consultation and how the policy document is looking at the moment.
Thank you, Richard. So over to Matthew Prince, who's a transport policy subject matter expert, to present the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you for inviting me along. It's a pleasure to bring a consultation back to everybody. I'm going to...
Matthew, I'm sorry to interrupt. Would it be easy if you sat in this desk here, because you're tucked away at the back there, and it doesn't seem a good communication. If that's all right, you're happy with that? Yeah.
The starring role is...
Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
Yes, so thank you for coming. It's great to bring back a consultation. We talk a lot about going out to consultation, but it's great to bring it back to you. I'm going to attempt to take you through a very quick presentation, because what I felt was important was essentially there is loads and loads and loads of information, and I wanted to condense it down. So I'll give you a summary, because there's something like 40 to 50 pages in the various reports that we pulled together. So let's just make sure this comes up. That's great, thank you. And I'm on the wrong page already, sorry. That's so just a quick overview on how it went as a consultation in general. We had nearly 400 responses through Citizen Space. So Citizen Space is the way that we collect our general responses, which we allowed for some free text responses, not just purely a limited yes, no, or agree or disagree type response. There were a number of free text boxes, which then resulted in about 2,000 comments that were taken through. We had 15 comments from parish councils and the local community networks. I did a series of parish council presentations via Teams. I did, and through the LCN networks. I also, if somebody asked, I would turn up as well and talk to their parish council too. So we did make sure we went out and let everyone know we were doing this consultation, and give them, and particularly the parish councils, a chance to say what they felt, and to me, rather than just in a blank document. And that was really helpful. We have statutory duty to consult with some people, and that again was fruitful. We don't always get responses back from everyone, but we did get them from the ones we did need, which is some of our bus user groups, some of our sort of community groups, but also we got them from Network Rail and National Highways, which you can imagine with a transport plan is fairly important. But overall, the tone of the responses was extremely positive and very, very supportive. There was obviously always some questions about more detail. There was always some points about specific infrastructure. You know, this junction doesn't work. this plan was never about specific infrastructure, and I'll just briefly touch on that coming forward in later slides. So I just wanted to assure you that we have gone through them all. It's been quite a big job because normally we wouldn't expect such a good, wholesome response, and I'm really pleased for that. And we have therefore got a nice engagement with our community on something which is not always top of their list to talk about, a transport plan. So there are 10 key themes that came out of it. Carbon reduction, that has come up quite strongly. We did ask a very specific question on carbon reduction, hence why I think it's stronger than I expected it to be. I am pleased. That's not a judgment value, but normally things like climate don't feature as high as the next one, which is public transport. So it's really good that we've had a good, solid response across the board on a number of topics. Public transport, active travel, and rural transport and equity are the sort of key things, I think, that have really sparked my sort of thought processes in this and understanding, is that these are good touch points for us to look at. The good thing is because we've moved away from a one size fits all plan, we are talking about these in a language that is acceptable to the population, that we're not just talking about urban, we're talking about urban and rural and the connectivity that they both have to follow. Electric vehicles sat sort of right in the middle, as it were. Tailored solutions. So that was more about some of the stuff we do around things like the Slinky, the digital responsive transport, where we've got things that are particularly tailored to need as opposed to just general. And that was a good reflection again on the people and place approach to this. There were a lot of sort of comments around the barriers to sustainable transport, mainly active travel, but also buses, about the fact that it's difficult to access some of these things because of either a disability or a mobility issue, or people's perception of safety, reliability and convenience and things like that. But, you know, the overarching thing was quite nice because it was about, I want to do it, but so that gives us something to work on. We did get comments from parish and statutory authorities, but the parish one, there was a fairly strong emphasis, as you'd expect, on rural isolation, being able to integrate with services and facilities. We had a sort of pushback about where there were some measurable targets. That will be picked up. So whilst it might not be exactly everything in the local transport plan, it will certainly be in the next stage where we will set out much more obvious and clear dates and targets. Infrastructure and planning, working with our planning colleagues, and that's in hand, definitely. And social inclusion, making sure we have a cohesive approach to people, that we don't just focus on a particular subset of the population. Why these matter? They matter because it gives us the mandate for investment in public transport, in active travel, in rural connectivity. And that, I think, was a very clear mandate that came out, that people are interested in this. And that's what this document is about, is to actually set the agenda for why we do what we do in transport. There were some operational challenges that came to light, and that is obviously very important because that presents a barrier, and it also indicates where we might want to look at integration, connectivity and funding. We did get some comments around community engagement, being more engaged. People were generally very happy with being engaged, particularly the LCN networks and things like that, and they wish to see more of it. And I've made assurances both to the LCN network team and the people that were on the various meetings with me that will happen, that we will go, rather than a document first and a consultation and an engagement after, we're going to look at how we play with that relationship to be more document engagement type scenario. And then obviously, clearly people had some infrastructure needs, but it gives us that focus to start working out why we spend money on certain infrastructure needs over others as well. I'm not going to labour this because it's in full details, but there were some points that we felt needed responding to. But generally, it was more a question of either we're already sort of doing that, or we are doing that, or actually this isn't a relevant thing for this particular document, but we will carry it forward into other future documents. But the main things were around virtually the same things as our top 10, which you would expect if that's where they've come up. EV charging I pull out because that's the one that's sat in the middle. It was a mixed bag, and I'll be honest with you, it's a mixed bag of people saying, well, I can't afford it, or I can't access the charging from home. All these things that we have discussed and you've heard us discuss, and that's given us again a nicer picture of what people are saying rather than what we think they're saying. So we will be picking that up. We have the task and finish group, as I mentioned just now. We have an EV charging rollout going on at the moment on street. We will be looking at all the breadth of the things that we need to look at, and we'll look at the EV charging strategy as one of the next suite of documents to update and to go through, because things even over 4 years they've changed. We know that. So things like integration and connectivity came up, and again, we are going to be proposing that after this, we've gone through the committees, the next thing for us is to look at what we're loosely calling an integration and connectivity strategy. And that's looking at how we connect these places. We've identified them, we've identified what policies are around them. What we're now going to look at is how do we connect them? What's the priorities for connecting them? What are the things that need to happen? Is it bus priority? Is it rail priority? Is it we need to consider the freight implications? Is it commuter journeys? We're going to look at that and come up with a series of strategies about delivery. So this is where we start talking about digging holes in the ground, as it were. But it's going to come from and be informed by this plan as to why we're doing it. So they will work together. That is where I'm going to start this engagement process before writing process. We're working through the LCN team and others to work out exactly how that's going to work, because it's a bit new. But what I want to do is give the opportunity for people to tell us what their issues are, what their connections are, how they would like things to work for their community, and then we look about how we do that, and if it's possible, and then feedback. So it should be a very iterative process. The local plan, we are working very closely with our local plan colleagues, and we do regularly meet weekly almost. I see one of them, and it's brilliant because that interaction is vital for the next stage, which is where everyone has. I get more questions when I'm in the meetings than on why have you allowed this development to go ahead with this junction and things like that. Those things we can bring together at the local plan and have those clearer policies on. These are the proposed changes. They're very minor. I can't tell you how overjoyed I am that we haven't got a list that is sort of 50 long. They wanted a clarification on the language in bus improvements, and we've written it a bit too with our technical heads on, so we need to just think about the audience more than we did in that section. And this particularly related to buses, but in general, they wanted a stronger line on disability and elderly. Absolutely agree with that. We didn't talk enough about car sharing and car clubs. Inclusion, I put my hands up, we all forgot about motorbikes. Okay, and that's not because we have any sort of problem with them. It's just that it's one of those ones that slipped through the net. But we will include a small section on that. There's not a lot we can add, but we will say how important they are to the overall transport infrastructure, transport sort of patchwork, and make sure that they have a decent chunk in there, as we have with others. Rural maintenance and freight traffic, we're going to pick up some lines on that. It's We don't need to go into detail, but what we do need is to make sure there's a reference that people know that we are treating rural maintenance as strongly as we would do with some of our A roads and strategic routes. And freight traffic, we do talk about freight, but I went to a freight forum in Shepton the other day, and it's clear that there are things that we need to sort of bring up to the fore. So we're going to just tighten that one up as well. And then finally, which was deliberately not in there, which is what happens next. Because what was happening next for this document was it's going into consultation. What happens next now, we know we've got the clarity on. And that is that we're going to take the final draft to the Planning and Transport Sub on the 10th of December, and then full council for adoption on the 17th of December. And I apologise profusely that you will be seeing my face a lot over the next 4 weeks, and hopefully it's not too painful. But then what we're going to do is talk about the delivery strategy straight away in the new year. We'll be going, my next task is to look at how we bring this into reality and from a policy to a delivery framework. So that was it. That was me. I might have taken a bit longer than I anticipated, but happy to take questions, bearing in mind how much information was in there.
Thank you, Matthew. That was very enlightening. Okay, I'll go with Councillor Hobhouse first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am very lucky in that you seem to have chosen one of your hubs to be Castle Carey Station. The car park has doubled. The transport people going through is up by twice. It seems to me that we need to progress Langport, or whatever you're going to call the station between Taunton and Castle Carey, because that's a 30-mile stretch without any rail infrastructure. And just to say, it's probably due to the dairy that we've gone, so because you can get a decent cup of coffee when you go to the station. A more serious point is the EV charging. I don't have a EV vehicle. I can get a charger where I live without a lot of problems. There are two fundamental problems with the whole of the EV strategy with reference to this. The first is any fast charger is charging somewhere between 65 and 95 pence per kilowatt. And that makes it more expensive to run than a diesel or a petrol car. And until we have sorted out chargers for houses that don't have drives, EV is not a cheap option for people in rural areas. There are now two methods of doing it. One seems a lot more sensible, where you have a gantry attached to your house and you swing it out over the top of the pavement to enable you to charge your car at 27p, which is whatever your house is. And that then makes it cheaper than conventionally fueled vehicles. And the other one is to have some sort of hole in the pavement where you can put through a wire without tripping everybody up. I am really sad that it's taken 3 years to come to, we haven't yet come to a conclusion about it. And I don't understand what the difficulty is.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you. I'll take the Castle Carey one first. What I think, I can't be very specific because as we said, it's a policy document. There is Castle Carey being where it is, it's got a bit more policy. But what I will say is this is what we're going to be talking about in the next document, that this integration and connectivity plan is about those things, about how we get people onto different types of transport. So not saying any transport in particular is better or worse, but giving more choice to people. And part of that comes with having more stations. We've got woefully the least number of stations, I think, in the country in Somerset, rail stations. I think we've got 7 or 8, or 8 if you include Wellington, which means that there is most probably a bit more capacity for stations, but it is not the easiest thing in the world to move the beast that is Network Rail into delivering more stations. But it is in our horizon. I think what we anticipate with the integration, and I don't want to put my thoughts on a plan that hasn't been written yet, but where my head seems to be a discussion with my colleagues, is around those big asks as well as the smaller stuff about what we see in 25, 30 years. What infrastructure do we need? So that we can put that case to government and say, stop, we want that money and we can prove and we can build the business case and get it forward. So that's that one. The EV stuff, totally get what you're saying. I have an EV vehicle myself. I can charge it on my drive. It's lovely, it's wonderful. But I then, as soon as I plug it in somewhere else, I'm sort of completely gobsmacked by the price of it. And I recently did in London because I had to go up for a wedding. And I thought, it almost made me think about the train. But I do completely get that. And that's why the cross pavement solution group has met, the task and finish group. We're meeting, we are dealing with that issue. I was like you, I walked into there full of naivety thinking, oh, it's a fairly easy thing to do. Just got to dig a hole in, come. It's not. Believe me. And the reason it's not is, and I'm not going to go into it here, it's not for this committee, and we will bring it back for you, as I said. But there are so many permutations, and even to the point where we have had no government guidance until about 2 weeks ago on what the solutions could be. So that's how even they were tussling with it. So we're moving forward, but we are going to move forward with the things that open up the doors for everyone in a much more equitable way. And we'll look at every opportunity, every advantage and disadvantage that we can try and grab people to say, right, we've solved that problem for you. You don't have a problem, but please come into the market. And I think the EV strategy needs a serious update, and that is on my to-do list with various colleagues to get us into a point where it's A, succinct, and B, targeted about what we're going to do or what we're not going to do. So we have that for the population. Does that answer you?
Yeah, I think if I remember rightly, we were due to have a report on EV charging, cross-pavement charging at the next scrutiny meeting. I don't know if that's going ahead now. I don't think the report will be ready, or is it?
Well, we're aiming for it to be ready, not for the 4th. I think it's the one in the new year.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it was originally down for the 4th, and it's now down for the following one. Yeah, well, that would be good to catch up because it is a very hot topic, that one.
Definitely. And the reason it's been pushed a bit is because we won't know about money until they tell us, but it should be in the December envelope, as it were. So that will then guide us on, if we've got the money, we can do more. If we get all of the money, we can do more. So that's why we thought it was sensible to wait until we know the full picture.
But we look forward to that. I've got Councillor Andy Dingwall next.
Thank you, Chair. And as an EV driver of about 10 years who drove from Yeovil Junction to Bridgewater yesterday with severe range anxiety and no heating, I absolutely am excited for the for the EV strategy. Couple of comments generally about the consultation. So there's a few questions I've got around how the consultation was framed as it was put out to the respondents. Was it purely focused on transport policy, or was there an element where they could prioritise the transport policy or plan priorities within the broader context of public spend? So where do they rank the importance of transport policy or transport planning against, say, social care or any of the other services that the council provide? It'd also be really useful, and this might not be relevant or possible for this one, but for a scrutiny committee to see the consultation document. I may have mentioned several times to this committee, I do research for my day job, and the framing of the questions is really quite important. So something like, there's a stat you put up there, 77% favour approaches suitable to diverse needs. the context of that question is critically important, because I would have actually expected that question to be much higher. I'm quite surprised that 23% of people don't want accessibility for transport. There's a phrase we use in survey design, the free beer question. So would you like a free beer? The answer is almost always yes. And so it'd be useful to understand the phrasing of the question to put the answers in proper context for a committee like this. Second point is around on page 39, you've judged EV take-up to be low, but there's no context as to low in relative to what. Is it relative to other similar counties as Somerset? Is it relative to a city where the infrastructure might be better? Or is it relative to something like the number of models that are accessible to buy on the market? It'd be really helpful to understand that. On page 40, it talks about related to the bus services. There's an aim of the council to increase frequency, reliability, and affordability. I'd like to see tighter language in a plan such as this. I would like to understand what that aim is. So, is it to make it 10% more reliable? I think at this stage, it's right to put those numbers in so that we can hold the council as a committee, hold the council to account over the coming years as the strategy starts to develop and as we start to see results. And the final question I've got is also related to bus service. It talks about people being willing to take the bus more often. I can't remember the exact stat, but is there any wider research that can speak to the difference between claimed behaviour and actual behaviour? So 70% of people might say, oh yeah, if you put a bus route outside my house, I'd definitely take it. I know from my work that that's not the actual thing that you'll get afterwards. So where is there research to say if 70%, 20% will actually go ahead and do it? Thank you, Chair.
Yes, Andy. I'm sorry, Matthew.
No, the problem at all. Yeah. We didn't ask the question about ranking it against other services. I have done that in the past, and it just didn't happen. So, but we did have a number of questions that asked the ranking. So we were very careful to make sure we didn't lead people. It's almost impossible in any survey because it's a one-topic survey. But we were we didn't just lock it down into binary yes or no questions, or even just agree, disagree, strongly disagree, all that sort of stuff, because we wanted to give people the opportunity to talk to us in free text boxes. So there was a lot of free text boxes that were sprinkled, and having gone through them all, I can promise you there were a lot of free text boxes. The context of EVs, it was mainly around in Somerset and was taken from that perspective. We do have a low uptake, and for the very reasons we were talking about just now, and that is why we need to look at how we build that. And bringing that in with the buses, it's about setting some reasonable targets about how we can do that. The problem we've had in the lead up is everything has been bit by bit funding. So we've had to apply for funding, bid for funding, whatever. We are moving to a much more smoother delivery of money. So hopefully we can look at things as we're doing them across the board with other infrastructure projects. And that's part of what my job is to do. So the targets, the thing about the LTP is one of the few bits of guidance we've had clearly from any central sources is that it must include the EV strategy, which is why we need to update that and bring it into the 2025s, 26s. It has to include the BSIP, Bus Service Improvement Plan. So that is part of the document as a whole. So sometimes we've gone a bit light on the bus service stuff purely because it's fully discussed on the other sections. I will double check to make sure that we reference targets. If there are targets in the BSIP, I will bring them across, or at least be a bit more specific. And I think, we need to make sure we do that. And the last one is the local cycling walking infrastructure plans form part of the document too. And then finally, yes, I'm a behaviour change person myself. I've worked in behaviour change for 20 odd years, as well as transport and other things. We have recently appointed a new post, which was always one that was missing, which is around travel demand management, behaviour change. It's an interchangeable term. I had a conversation with him yesterday. We're going to look at what we can do to ensure that when we build something, people use it. Find out what the places are that we need to develop a stronger relationship, workplace, schools, that sort of thing. But also look at this very interesting thing, which is what people say and what they do. What are the fear factors that we've got to get people past, and what's the risks planning that we do with people? And I think talking to my colleague, it was lovely to have that chat with him, because I think we can build on what we started to do. It's going to most probably start happening more in Bridgewater, because we built some stuff and we've had some money from Hinckley where we can focus on that, but then it should expand out. We're going to test a lot of hypotheses in a place where we've got the ability to do so, but it's not that difficult as long as we don't try and do everything. So I totally I'm supportive of the next phase, which will be about changing behaviour. And it's not about telling people car is bad, bus is good. That's not what we're about. We're just the right vehicle for the right journey. You know, that's a much simpler way of putting it. And if somebody changes one of their days in a week in terms of journey, that's 25%. Or if you're talking Monday to Friday, I can't do the maths on the other one. But 20% change. And that's good. That's brilliant. It's better than we're getting at the moment.
Thank you very much. Andy has
Yeah, just one very, very quick one. You mentioned it, really good answer. Thank you very much. I understand more. You mentioned again the take up of EV is low. Is there a percent that you guys have in mind where you think the take up of EV is okay, or what's the end goal of that?
It's a very difficult question to answer, because things keep moving with the removal of combustion engine vehicle new purchases. That seems to move about a bit. We're jumping around with that. We also need to look at how the infrastructure is provided for that. We did a major study. I think I did a special evening presentation on our climate carbon quantification for Somerset now, and what our plans for the future were, which was a bit sobering. That does include just purely an EV trajectory. So that would be most probably a target, but we have to work on a target with our colleagues in climate, with our colleagues in the V team and that stuff as well. So I think what we will be looking at eventually is a much more defined, clear target. But I think what we are doing at the moment is making sure that whatever target we put fits in with the council's plan and the council's strategies, and also the stuff that's going on around the ecology emergency and the climate emergency as well. What we don't want to do is lead with something that doesn't fit all those parts.
Is it worth taking the word low out then as a value judgment on where we are now?
Yeah, or at least making sure we defined it very clearly. Yeah.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Hayward-Burt next. Thank you.
Matthew, on the consultation, were there any concentrations of responses? Because with 400 responses, you could concentrate and launch a campaign to get responses of a certain type. So are there any alarm bells on the type of responses you had? Do you think it's broad enough what you've got? The other thing, is there any surprises in terms of non-engagement with the consultation, i.e. groups that you didn't have any input from at all? The third thing, and sorry if I've missed this in terms of the LTP, but Somerset Council doesn't exist in isolation. My residents have already seen decisions made by other councils that impact my residents. Now, I couldn't see it in this, but have we had any consultation or impact into the services provided by Dorset Council, Wiltshire Council, Devon Council, and all the councils that surround us, some of which services come through our county? Now, like I said, I may have missed it, but you know, we can't just come up with a plan, say that's what we want to do. They have services which our residents already use, and then those services are gone. So thank you.
Yes, concentrations. There wasn't anything obvious that really leapt out when you looked at the results, apart from the urban rural thing. And I think that was going to happen irrespective of what question you asked or who you went out to. We were the only sort of advertising, for want of a better word, was saying about the consultation being open and being able. We didn't target, apart from the statutory groups and anyone specifically to sort of skew the but we did go to those that wanted more information. That was the way we went. So interestingly, from the parish council meetings that I had, they were predominantly, I would say, more rural parishes, and you felt that they wanted more representation. So that would be the only concentration. People missing from the concentration, I think the standard persons that were missing were most probably the same across the board, but particularly young people, I would say, was most probably less. But you know, we have done some engagement with the Youth Parliament in the past, and we have done some work with schools, but we have sort of understood why that's the case. Going forward, I think we will go forward with a much more clearer plan about when we start delivering services. We will look at those more traditionally difficult for us to get in front of and less engaged with us because we're a council. We're not hip and trendy. Certainly, my days have long gone. Cross-border stuff, yes. All the border counties were consulted. Didn't get any responses, but I do have good relationships. The relationships I've been building over the last 6 to 8 months, in particular, with Bath, North East Somerset, Wiltshire, and then coming round Dorset, Cornwall, Devon. We've been building up that sort of relationship. We have Peninsula Transport, I've sort of talked to them, and we've got feedback from them. So I do know the temperature. I do know what they're thinking. Most of them have said to me, "Oh, it's fine. We don't have a problem with it." I would anticipate a lot of that's because they don't have enough time to comment on every document that comes across their table, which is across the board. But we do consult with them, and we do definitely talk to them, and it's improving as well, which is good.
Thank you. Mike O'Dowd-Jones would like to add a comment.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and just to highlight that the local transport plan and its consultation was a relatively high level policy position. In terms of bus services, which I guess is the particular area of interest, we do have a separate bus service improvement plan, which we have in place. We've had it for a while now, and we update it. There's an enhanced bus partnership that sits alongside that, and we have an enhanced partnership group where we invite the surrounding authorities to join us in discussions about bus services, and they invite us to join their equivalent group. So there is a lot of discussion and interaction cross border about bus services. It's just, I think, that the local transport plan is so high level in a way that it's probably had less attention from those authorities than the detailed bus service discussions that we do have. Thank you.
I've got John, please, John Cook-Woodman.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, and it was just a comment on bus consultations. Is always difficult because everybody thinks it's a really good idea to have a bus service, and everybody thinks it's a really good idea if somebody else takes the bus. So making sure that to get the people who really want the bus, and it's a difficult one, that one. The other thing was, I know that you forgot the Iron Horse motorcycles, but also within active travel and also in transport, whatever. We live in a rural area, Somerset. I think it's very important that we have horses included within that as well, because they have been a part of our makeup for centuries, and we shouldn't forget them.
Absolutely. We need to, this is part of that discussion about how it's easy to say, get more people on a bus. The bit that we're going to work on is how. Why should they get on a bus? Why should they change their behaviour? Why should they want to get out of their car? But we've got to, that's what the stage we're going to do next. We'll look at and we'll come back with some tangible ways that we're going to achieve that in an infrastructure way. So yes, we know the difference between, yeah, I really want to use the bus, but then jump into your car. We've got to turn the language, but we've also got to provide the right things. And we're looking at hubs, we're looking at transport connectivity in the next document, how we integrate. Do we have to do the full journey by bus? Do we have to do the full journey by car? Do we mix it together? And how we bring active travel into that. We do have a distinct section on equestrian. I have attended the Rights Away board and had a good grilling from our equestrian colleagues, which was really sharpened my mind. I'm not a horse rider, but I do understand the value that the equestrian community, both for themselves, for leisure, but also for the wider economic benefits of the county. So I'm fully aware of that. So as Mike alluded to earlier and said earlier, we have a high level document here. The most important thing is that we have referenced it and that it is in there and that it then becomes part of our, why do we do this? Why do we choose this scheme, not that scheme? Those things will be taken into account, and equestrian is amongst them.
Sorry, I must have missed that it was in the document.
Yeah, that's fine.
Then it's my. I was just going to say on the bus thing that then the level of subsidy that you would have to put in to get people to then have the opportunity to change their behaviour is quite astronomical in a rural area when you're talking about long distances and low conurbation populations. And so do we have an idea of what kind of level of subsidy we would go to per journey if that's the course of action that you as a council decide to take?
And I'm sort of sorry to start pushing it to the next document, but it is that sort of thing. Subsidies are finite. They don't go on forever, and they don't increase just because you've got more people. We get a grant from the government on what we can do and what we can spend. What I want to look at is how we get more people covered by our bus network, but not necessarily increasing costs. I know that's going to sound like a weird one. Good luck, yes, I know. But it's all about what services do we use. We have a massive problem. One of the things that did come up in the consultation around social isolation, particularly our less abled people and our older people, but also our younger people, feeling that they are dependent on the mum and dad car all the time. What we have seen is with our digital responsive transport that's been in operation, a greater increase in usage, particularly with the younger demographic, because it's digital and they can just get on the phone, do it, bang. So I was at a meeting with the DfT well over a year ago now, but about their integrated transport strategy, which we're waiting for, due out soon. And one of the questions they asked me is, what can we do? And I said, well, actually for us, it's good Wi-Fi and good mobile coverage. And they were a bit shocked that I didn't say buses or something like that, because I think that's the first step. We need to have equal access to the opportunities that are there. And I said, yes, we want better bus routes and better this and better that. But actually, if we can't connect to knowing when a bus is if we're standing at a bus stop and we can't see when it's coming, or we can't see, we can't access it at home, we can't get on at home because it keeps dropping out. Those are important.
David Kelly.
So, yes, thank you.
I think there's somebody with a microphone open online. Sarah Wakefield, I think it might be yours. Okay, that's off now. We didn't hear anything we shouldn't have done. I'm got one question online, and then I'm going to end this. Unless there's anyone in the room, Dave Mansell, I didn't see your hand. I do apologise. I'll come to you first, and then Councillor Bob Filmer. Were you waving frantically at me? No, I was nodding somewhere else. Nodding, not nodding off, but nodding somewhere else. Sorry.
Thank you. I believe I'm okay to go. Sorry, I've got a few comments and slight danger of letting me go too late because I can't help but comment on some of the things raised. But overall, I wish to say I think this is good, and I'm pleased to see it, and pleased to see what looks like it's emerging, reflecting some of the things that have been raised, take up of EV, some comments on that. But I believe the trend is clear, and I think it is going up. And actually, if we look at it, we're still over a fairly short period of where EVs have been a serious option, but they are coming, and clearly more people are taking them up. So I feel positive, and it is clear direction of travel. And once you've driven one, I haven't got one, but I've driven one, they're just brilliant. And most people who've got them absolutely love them and think many advantages. Clearly charging is an issue and needs to be got right, and we do need to listen to what people are saying. I think the finances, the comparative costs are greatly improving as well, and again, that's the direction of travel. They're simpler, cheaper, better, but getting charging right is very important. And clearly, we've got initiatives to do that. A little bit nitpicking, and I'm not looking for a response, but and we've got some things going ahead, not least the Levi Fund, which is great. The cross-panel solutions has been mentioned, and I think we have made it very clear we're a bit disappointed how long this has taken. And in that regard, I do feel I should just mention we had an electric vehicle charging to 2020, and I'm pretty certain one of the main recommendations, one of the main actions from that was that guidance was going to be provided on cross-channel solutions. This was not new. 5 years ago, we said we were going to do it, and we're still waiting. And yeah, okay, it's complicated, but we've now got examples of other councils who are doing it, have been doing it for some time. I wasn't prepared for this, but I think I've remembered one I was particularly impressed with is West Berkshire. If I've remembered the council right, I think I have. You look at what they're doing, you can go to West Berkshire on their website, click, order my cross-channel pavement channel. It's being done. I seem to remember Cornwall, there is a number of others who can do it. Okay, there's not a big number, but there are ones who are doing it, and I look forward to the day soon, I hope, when Somerset's there. And we may need to trial it and learn a little bit for ourselves locally. But that's been a long time coming. We do need to get on with these things. Okay, behaviour change. Just feel I'm just may mention of that, and pretty happy with the comments made all round by people. Good points have been made. I've had involvement in this as well, not so much in transport, although I dip my toe in now and then. But my career, as I said before, waste and recycling, including on strategy and services over a good number of decades, where when I started, recycling was barely a thing. Now it's the absolute norm for most people. We do it. One thing that many of us learned and agreed as we went through that, there was quite a lot of people who thought it's about education, it's about awareness rates, communications. Whenever we measured it, those things made next to no difference in terms of what people actually did. I think they're important and need to be got right. So I'm not saying they're not important, but in terms of changing behaviour, they tended not to do it. What changed behaviour was infrastructure, policy, making the services you want people to use convenient, and making them maybe not always trying to make the services you don't want people to make convenient, which of course is what we've done a lot by we've had policies for cars, which are part of the mix, but I think that's those lessons have been learned, and I'm sure absolutely true across many service areas. So our biggest focus needs to be on infrastructure, policy, convenience, communication. Yeah, it's part of the mix, but it's not going to drive big change on its own. Okay, so very interested what you were saying about delivery, and that was sort of really my big question, sort of reading all of this. So you said you're covering a post-adoption strategy, so I think that is really important. So I'm trying to give emphasis to that. I think, yeah, we want to see, you know, how things connect together and how we're going to get to changing things on the ground, what's going to be delivered. So really interested to see that section as it's added, and it's an important one. And I'll give a plug to one thing. We could give plugs to lots of things, but and many things can make a difference. But something we're not really doing at the moment, and which I feel we could do more relatively easy, is car clubs, including in rural areas. And if we actually had a bit of support around that, I have a feeling it's something that could achieve quite a lot. I'd really like us to start delivering in that area, alongside delivery in just about everything else you've been talking about as well. I've got a question, and perhaps if I could look for a response then, and then I've got another final one, but perhaps if I could come to that after dealing with this one. There's interest in quiet lanes. It's a small thing, and I've noticed many responders have mentioned it, and I'm one of the responders. I mentioned it. Don't think I'm quoted in the report anywhere. Now, and we all know the council's financial position. We're looking for things that can be done easily and quickly, and I really think quiet lanes is one of those. Now, there's clearly a number of respondents there who are keen on quiet lanes. People have raised it in my area, and I'm not looking for the casework, but just an example of what happens. There's a quiet lane proposal in an area. There's a number now, in fact, but there's one that's been there for a while. It even had a county council funded feasibility study done. I've been trying to push this, and I've been writing to officers and trying to get a response. And I keep writing to officers, I don't get a response. Officers don't come back to me. And I don't wish to put you on the spot, Matthew, but you're one of the recent officers I've written to on this. You weren't where I started, but I'm trying to find out who will reply to me. And there, I've vented a little bit of frustration, but what I really want to see is a route to delivery on quiet lanes. And at the moment, officers can't respond. And so I'm not quite sure what that means, to be honest, but they won't respond. So please respond, and please let's find a delivery route on that. But I have a feeling I would quite like a response on that bit. The rest was really just comment.
Matthew and then Richard.
Yes, certainly. My apologies you haven't had a response. I have had your email. Unfortunately, I was poorly last week.
Okay.
So I'm gonna use that excuse, but I will promise you a response before the end of this week. And with quiet lanes, they are working. Richard almost probably would like to do more than that. On your other points, I've taken them down. I totally agree. Car clubs, car clubs, shared bikes, all these things we've tried in the past and failed have been because we've not had enough of a market for them to succeed. What we need to do is look at how we support that market, look at whether we need to go with a bigger operator, bigger sort of outside of Somerset, or join forces with other counties. But I grew up on car clubs as a thing, and I was the person that implemented them in London. So I do understand them very well, and we will make sure that they form part of our package. Richard.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Richard.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to mention that we are quiet lanes, and indeed, because quiet lanes have a very specific designation, shared road spaces as well is something that we're working very hard. We're working very hard with the council to progress. I would recommend that you speak to Councillor Roswijk, who is leading on active travel, and this fits quiet lanes and shared spaces fit very strongly in that side of things. So if you could email Councillor Ros Wyke. Thank you.
Okay, if I
Yep.
may.
Yep.
I am looking for the technical response. I'm looking for how it gets delivered. I'm not looking for a policy or strategy. So I feel it is for the officers to address. I believe that's what officers do.
Yes, we have an answer at the back.
Thank you, Chair.
Sam.
Councillor Mansell, I think that the challenge has been that we haven't had a policy in place, and therefore, in order to deliver something, it's quite challenging. Putting the local transport plan in place gives us a policy and therefore a mandate to go forwards. So we will come back to you, and we've got a couple of quiet lane trials that we're looking at in a couple of parts of the county. So we'll come back to you, and I'll get you a better, more technical response.
Thank you. All right, one topic, if I may. Okay, travel plans were part of this consultation. Now, we haven't actually got much of that here. What I'm wondering, but it is a question, is whether we should have a report back on travel plans. And if I could just say why I think that, and I don't know fully about it, but I do know travel plans were part of this consultation. I don't feel we get value for money from travel plans. We see them alongside planning applications, and they're quite a bureaucratic process. People have to write reports, offer things, and it looks like one of those ones I just said earlier. Communication and administration achieves nothing. So it costs money. We're getting money from developers to do it, but we're getting no outcome. That's what it looks like to me. I made some comments in my response, and again, I notice others have talked about travel plans in varying degrees. But this is why I think maybe a report that comes back to us. Since I've sent my report, I've spoken to others. I had previously spoken to Cycle Campaign people about this. Since I've spoken to planning officer and planning developer. And actually, they shared the same views. They just thought they were a complete waste of time, nearly. I mean, not entirely, but So I feel these need redirecting and thinking about how we can actually get some outcome. So we've got some money here. We've got money from developers, but there's no, from what I've seen, there's no monitoring of it. There's nothing I've seen that's actually genuinely come out as positive. So I think what I'm asking is for a report to come, but of course I'm interested to hear, maybe there's a response that will.
Yeah, it's a good point, actually, Matthew.
Yes, as part of the LTP consultation, we tagged on, because it'd been waiting to go out to consultation, both the new travel plan guidance and a set of guidance on what's called design and provide. Which is about a sort of approach to evaluating applications. I haven't brought that here. It was due to be part of this suite of packages, but just because of time and everything else, I know that my colleague will be bringing it next year. It'll be coming in, so the results of all that will be discussed with you, and it should be tabled, Chair, as part of a future programme of stuff. So you will get more information about that, and you will get the chance to scrutinise any results from that.
Quick comeback.
Quickly, when that report comes, could it include some options, some ways travel plans could be delivered? Could we be involved at an early stage in making suggestions to shape that? It doesn't need a response now, but it's just a request. Could that be considered?
I understand. I don't think you will be able to get that because it's a specific consultation on a specific document, but that doesn't mean to say that these documents remain the gospel forever. And I do understand what you're saying about travel plans. I'll have that discussion with my colleague and come back with most probably a future plan on that.
Thank you. Yeah, there's always a worry. I think we pass things at planning, active travel plans, and they're part of the deal. And we'll probably never know whether or not they're really we need a more cast iron way of applying them. Councillor Bob Filmer, and then I'm calling an end to this item.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, Councillor Bob Filmer, I'm Councillor for Brent Division and also the Shadow for Transport. Was really just a couple of comments, if I could, Chair. Was welcoming the consultation. It was good that there was a good response to it, and reassuring that actually it was pretty supportive of generally where we were heading. And also particularly pleased to see the positive response that's come from officers in terms of their feedback that came in and the changes that were being made. Wearing my division hat, predominantly rural, and you pretty much pressed all the right buttons for the parishes in my area. The issues of rural isolation, lack of public transport, and need to work on rural active travel is something that is critical in certainly in areas like mine. The one thing I was very pleased to hear again that you mentioned that you've got this delivery strategy coming through, and to echo Councillor Mansell, one of the dangers we have is sometimes we write some really good policies and we raise everyone's expectations and everyone gets excited and then nothing happens. So I hope this committee will have a role in monitoring and seeing that delivery strategy come through and how it's implemented, because delivery is going to be critical. But really, as I say, really was to thank the officers for the work they've done, working with our communities, and pleased that that continues, and working with us as members as well and local ward members, because I think it's important that we're all engaged in this, which has such an impact on our local residents.
Thank you, Bob. I think you've do you have anything else to add to that? No, he's gone. That's fine. I think you've happily summarised many of the things I was going to say. Matthew, would you like a final word?
Just no, I hear the comments that have been today. I think we've got a lot to work on. The delivery strategy, I would refer to the LTP as a document about why we're going to do things. Everyone loves a document that tells us why, but what they really want is what are we going to do and how are we going to do it. And that is a bit like the end of EastEnders. I'm going to leave you with a cliffhanger to say that is coming up, and we will be coming back to you with a much more fulsome document about what's going to happen next. And I can guarantee you most probably need another extraordinary session on it, because it will be quite a big discussion that everyone will have. But yeah.
Thank you, Matthew. Well, thanks to Mike and to Richard, and particularly to you for that report. Some of the things that I took out of it, the consultation strategy was discussed at length, and the effectiveness of that consideration of cross-council issues mattered. Very important to many of our areas, actually. We'd like to see the EV strategy accelerated, really, the cross pavement channels. That seems over, and I probably, like a lot of other people, get a fair amount of mail on that one. Councillor Mansell's point about infrastructure changing behaviour is actually, I think, a very relevant one in this context. Importance of post-adoption strategy, that we need to know what's going on. Quiet lanes, yes, that came up as well, and I'm relying on conversations with Dave Mansell so he can reassure us at a future date that that's going ahead, and the response given to developers, the delivery of plans, which is useful as well. So thank you very much for all of that. We will now go into a short recession for a comfort break. And when we come back, we've got another big agenda item. So 10 minutes, please. Thank you very much. I think, ladies and gentlemen, let's reconvene. Yeah, I mean, I think we'd be very optimistic thinking that we'd get away by 12. But then we always are, aren't we, in this committee? But I do think that, if I may preface this next item, as we come to item 7, parking consultation outcomes and recommendations. This is this is a contentious argument, I'm quite sure. I would just ask in advance that we don't get too involved in our own localised matters. Clearly, we will have a view that's based on that, but we're looking at overall policy here, and that's not to say you can't mention it. but we all have our own parking issues in our own wards, and we mustn't get bogged down too much in those specific conversations, if you don't mind. I'm not trying to curb anybody, but I do think we can veer off track if we're not careful. So I'd like to invite Mike O'Dowd-Jones, Service Director, to introduce you. Richard's going first. I do beg your pardon, Richard's not on my list. So Councillor Richard Wilkins will introduce this and then hand over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Just for context, back in February at full council, we voted for the parking services to take a look into parking as an overall subject in Somerset. We asked officers to put into place resources to do this, and we identified 3 work streams, one on street parking, one on current free car parks, and one on Sunday car parking. And it has to be noted that that having listened to concerns, we dropped plans to look into overnight parking, and we made some other tweaks. It would be fair to say that we would have liked to have been further down the line on parking at this point, but today we're bringing the results of the consultation on the Sunday parking, and at this point I'll hand over to Mike to put a bit more detail into things.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkins. So yeah, I wanted to give a reasonably comprehensive introduction to this item, because I think it's important to understand where it sits in terms of the general development of parking services. So if you bear with me to set a little bit of context before we go into the outcome of the consultation. So as Councillor Wilkins has said, there were 3 items that were considered by the council back in February and March, which then went into budget setting. So the purpose of those was to establish consistency in this policy area, and to increase resources to deliver those changes and maintain those changes. And I think it's fair to say that those resources would be able to deliver a much better parking service generally, and some more imaginative use of parking, and dealing with some of the issues which we haven't been able to deal with in the last couple of years around residence parking schemes and things like that. So it's a really important thing to understand that this is linked to resources within the parking service. The financial forecasts associated with those changes that Councillor Wilkins mentioned, which went into the budget, totaled 1.4 million in total in terms of the forecast income from those initiatives. So that's in the budget at the moment. The forecast associated with the Sunday parking charge changes specifically is in the papers, and that's at 730k per annum projected forecast additional income associated with those changes. So obviously, if these proposals aren't taken forward, then there will be an equivalent budget pressure of that order for us to deal with. So the council resolved to support a consistent approach to parking across Somerset, and that was subject to further work being done to understand the economic impact of the proposals, and for local communities to be given the ability to have their views considered. So we've taken forward the Sunday parking charge element as the highest priority of those 3 areas of change, on the basis that we have had limited capacity to take this forward over the last few months. This was the most obvious inconsistency, I think, that obviously some parts of the county do charge for parking on a Sunday and some don't, and that's purely a result of the legacy arrangements of those district councils, rather than there being any kind of strategy behind that. So it's an obvious inconsistency to deal with, and it was also the most straightforward to implement in a practical sense, because if we were to essentially replicate the charges that are in place on a Saturday, put them in on a Sunday, it's very easy for people to understand, and we could also facilitate it very quickly through just putting additional stickers over the signs. So it's a very practical thing to take forward more quickly than some of the other elements. And I think consultation and implementation for changes on the other matters, i.e. the on-street and free car parks that there are in place, would probably take some more in-depth localised work, some further analysis and consultation and engagement to take forward successfully. And we are currently commissioning support to undertake that work. So it's not been forgotten. We are currently in the process of commissioning that. And we have also discussed over the last few months as part of our budget and MTFP discussions that there are probably other elements of a comprehensive parking strategy that we should be developing. So we are working out the capacity to take those forward. So we're proposing to take a paper through Scrutiny and Executive around a set of guiding principles for parking, to put in place a high-level policy and strategy for parking, which is quite a missing piece of our policy and strategy. And that will enable us to take forward some more detailed work packages which align with that overarching strategy. So that's work to come in due course. But turning back to the matter of today, which is purely the Sunday charging element, we have undertaken a public consultation on that, which was undertaken between the 8th of September and the 20th of October. This will be considered by the executive on the 3rd of December. So really the purpose of bringing this to you is to have your consideration. You may wish then to provide a view on the proposals or recommendations for executive to consider when they come to make that decision in December. So in terms of facilitating this meeting, I've got very kindly Jerome Pilley from WSP, who has helped us undertake this consultation work, who is online and will give us a walkthrough of the consultation outcomes, which are in the papers that have been circulated. And I've also got Vicky Lohman, who's the interim parking services manager. So between us, we'll be answering the questions that you've got. I would also say in the papers, as agreed at budget setting, is an economic assessment, which WSP undertook for us. That's included as Appendix 2. The author of that work is not here. It was undertaken by WSP's senior economist, who hadn't been able to come to the meeting. So we won't be able to go into detailed questions about that document. Although if there are points of clarification around that work, I can certainly take those away for a response. So that hopefully you'll forgive a fairly detailed introduction. I thought it's really important just to see where this sits within the wider picture. So that's me done, and I'm happy to hand over to Jerome at the appropriate time, Chair, if you're okay to proceed.
Thank you. Andy Dingwall wants to ask a question specifically to you, Mike.
It was just a point of clarification. You talked about the budget pressures and mentioned it again towards the end of your introduction. The budget pressures, are they on this year's, so the 25-26 budget, or is it forecast for the 26-27 budget?
Yeah, so the parking changes as a whole had a budget forecast of about 350k within this financial year. So the bulk of that 1.4 million comes in further financial years. We obviously, it was a forecast based on likely income generation from parking generally, which does fluctuate. So I think that pressure is not at the moment entirely there as a pressure, because the running rate of parking income has actually exceeded what we thought it would do. There is some pressure there, but it's not the full amount.
Councillor John Hunt's had his hand up for some time. Are you just getting in early, John, or is this a point of order? Thank you.
I am getting in early, Mr. Chairman. I actually have to leave at about 12:30, so I'm rather hoping I might get in before then, but I doubt it based on the last issue. But thank you.
Okay, we have to hear the reports first. All right, thank you very much. So we're handing over to. Are we handing over to Vicky?
Jerome, if he's.
Oh, Jerome. Sorry.
Hopefully he's available online.
Yeah, I will share the presentation. Right, there are quite a few slides. I will try not to dwell on them. I'm conscious of time. some of this was already being discussed. Consultation opened on the 8th of September, closed on the 20th of December. There were just under 4,200 responses received through that citizen space portal. There are an additional 40 emails received, and we've included emails up to the end of October, even though the consultation officially closed on the 20th, we've included those emails up to the end of October. The citizen space portal had 22 questions. 8 of those were only for individuals and 10 of them were only for businesses or organisations. And responses to questions weren't mandatory, so you will see different response levels on those. At the end, we've listed some responses from key stakeholders, and those were considered to be the emergency services, public transport representatives, Somerset Council, councillors, and town or parish councils. So the first question, which of these locations do you currently park in on a Sunday? Respondents were able to select as many options as they wish to here. I'm aware that the table is quite small, so we've taken out the 5 most commonly selected responses here. You can see Taunton is by far the most commonly selected response. Almost 70% of respondents park there, followed by Bridgewater, Yeovil, Wellington and Street. And I think Burnham-on-Sea and Minehead were the other 2 that had more than 10% of people selecting them. So there's a lot of representation for Taunton parking here. Who people were responding as, the vast majority were Somerset residents, with about 2% of respondents businesses and 1.5% responding as visitors. How often people park in council car parks? The most commonly selected answer was every week, more than once a month. So we're generally hearing from regular car park users here. And thinking about the area or the specific car park people most frequently use, you can see that most people, just about 87% of people, find it easy to find fairly easy or very easy to find a space for them in a car park on a Sunday. And then what are the primary reasons for parking in a car park on Sundays? Shopping, the most popular, followed by leisure, and a significant response for religious reasons, primarily attending church. The other categories not so commonly selected. Wanted to look at how long people generally park in car parks for on Sundays. It's, as you can see, between an hour and 4 hours is typical, which I think aligns with, you know, making a trip into town to do some shopping, perhaps have some lunch, go to a cafe, that sort of thing. Question 5, wanted to get a view whether people thought that introducing the hourly Sunday parking charges would be likely to free up car parking spaces. This is something that is cited in the economic impact assessment and experience elsewhere. Having Sunday parking charges will quite often lead to people staying for shorter periods of time. You get greater turnover, and one of the factors that affects footfall in town centres is quite often the availability of parking rather than necessarily the charges that the amount you have to pay to park. The majority of people don't think that this would be the case in this situation, though 75%. We asked what people would do if a charge was introduced to park in council-owned car parks on a Sunday. Most commonly picked answer was not park in a car park on a Sunday. Others saying they would park elsewhere in the same town. There were a significant number of other responses, and those broadly broke down into avoiding town centres, shopping online or going to retail parks, using supermarket car parks, parking on the street instead, and others took the opportunity to make more general comments about the level of public transport available on Sundays, generally criticised the proposals, and there were a small number of comments expressing support for the proposals. Would people support more consistency in parking arrangements across Somerset towns? Again, the answer is no. People don't support consistency. 61% of people say no, they don't support consistency. Only 21% say that they do. We asked whether people agreed or disagreed that the proposals would make parking arrangements more consistent. And again, 68% of people don't believe that this would make the arrangements more consistent, with only 16% of people saying that they believe it would. The next set of questions were targeted at businesses or organisations. So we wanted to know the nature of the business or the organisation. The two most commonly selected options were retail and commercial, voluntary, community and faith, followed by food and hospitality. Of those who chose other, there were 6 organisations that we would call sort of political, Yeovil constituency Labour Party and the town or parish councils, 3 churches, 2 community groups and some other businesses. The majority of those businesses and organisations responding were micro businesses, or perhaps not majority, plurality. So we're hearing from small, very small in some cases, businesses here. In terms of where these businesses or organisations are located, again, Taunton is the dominant location. I think it's possibly almost as many as everywhere else put together. You can see Yeovil, Wellington, Frome, Bridgewater, Chard have some representation as well. Asking people, do they or their customers, visitors or staff currently use any of the car parks? Yes, the vast majority of these businesses and organisations, people do use the car parks. And again, the majority of people are thinking about areas where it is currently free to park on a Sunday. The majority of people, again, think that parking availability has a very high impact on their business or organisation on a Sunday. And again, we had the business question, do you think that introducing these hourly parking charges would be likely to free up car parking spaces by encouraging shorter stays? And again, the majority of people don't think that that would be the case. Asking the businesses what they think the impact would be on their business or organisation, there were 80 responses, so it's a relatively small sample size in terms of surveys generally, but I think for business responses it's quite high. There were fears of a negative impact on the business because of loss of footfall, predictions that people will use alternative parking, whether that's free, out of town centres or parking on street, concerns about the impact on churches and community, as well as events like market, sport, concert, concerns about the financial impact, and again, general criticism of the council. There were some alternatives suggested. Some people said that if you want to be more consistent, you could make parking free everywhere in Somerset on Sundays. Others suggested flat rates for Sunday parking, grace periods, or sort of tying into the previous agenda item, improving public transport. Would you support more consistency in parking arrangements? The picture's slightly more mixed here, but again, most people say no, they wouldn't support more consistency in parking arrangements across the towns. And again, most of these businesses don't agree that the proposals would make parking arrangements more consistent. Moving on, we limited the number of free text. We suspected that there would be a large number of responses, as there were, so we limited the number of free text responses. This is the main one. Were there any further comments? And the main points were concerns about the economic impact, the social impact on families, the elderly, disabled or low-income residents. Some people suggesting Sunday's the only affordable day to visit town centres. Concerns about the level of public transport, particularly mentions of park and ride not operating on Sundays. Other people just didn't like the idea of consistency at all, wanting more localised policies. Again, there were alternative suggestions, lower Sunday rates, an initial free period, free parking until noon for churchgoers, or seasonal charges. Concerns, particularly in Taunton, about people choosing not to park in car parks and instead parking in areas where there aren't currently restrictions on Sundays. And then some more general criticism of the council in the motivation. And although it's not part of these proposals specifically, some people criticised the council for charging disabled badge holders to park in car parks. And there were some mentions of location-specific issues, for example, markets that currently run in car parks, sports clubs, churches, who are concerned about the impact on their operations. The main question, I suppose you could say, to what extent do you agree or disagree? The 79% of people strongly disagree, 13.9% disagree, and then it's around 2 to 3% strongly agreeing, and saying they neither agree nor disagree. Just two more slides, I think. The key stakeholder comments, that we didn't get any responses from the emergency services. That's not necessarily a surprise. They tend to be more concerned with on street and moving things. The Somerset Bus Partnership expressed qualified support for the proposals. They had concerns about areas where there's no bus service or limited bus service provision on Sundays, and they would like to see any additional funding ring-fenced to provide additional bus services in affected areas, including improving links from railway stations into town centres. There were excuse me, there were 3 responses from Somerset councillors, 1 expressing support, 2 were opposed to the proposals, both detailed concerns about the negative economic and social impacts, and 1 proposing free Sunday parking across Somerset. The town and parish councils, you can see, I won't read them all out, a variety of town and parish councils responded. Watchet Town Council agrees with the proposals. Wellington Town Council, I thought it's best just to quote them, they reluctantly accept that Sunday charges are likely to be introduced, but request any additional income is reinvested into improving the town's car parks. And the remainder of the town and parish councils opposed the proposals, and their concerns were similar to the concerns expressed by the public, the economic impact, the impact on churchgoers, all those things that I've probably said 2 or 3 times now. And that is the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much. Do we have any more?
No, I think at that stage we're happy to take questions. Just to point out that although Vicky's sitting in the hot seat over there, I'm expecting to take some of the questions myself, and I'll bring in others, as and when necessary. But you're very happy to proceed.
If no one minds, I'd like to break with the usual protocol and ask Councillor John Hunt if he'd like to put his question first. He's online, and he's asked for our understanding in this. John, are you there?
You're very kind, Mr. Chairman. That's exceptional. Thank you for that. I do appreciate it. I'll be very quick. I oppose these Sunday charges in Taunton, as does the 95% Liberal Democratic established Taunton Town Council, and virtually every human being I've spoken to here opposes this. Yes, I'm being a bit local, but my area is only a segment of Taunton. So I'm talking about Taunton and Wellington. We can put it that far as well. Firstly, I want to support the comments from Pastor Judith Butler, who I thought spoke very nicely. And I just want to quote just one small paragraph. The findings of the public consultation are overwhelmingly in disagreement with the proposals. Almost 93% either disagree or strongly disagree. And I really trust that the Scrutiny Committee will take due consideration of the weight of this public opinion. Those were her words, not mine, but I completely agree with what she said. On page 143, it says the consultation about the question about the consultation, which locations do you currently park in? As has already been said, I think 69.95 or 70% responded Taunton. 87% if you include Wellington, 87%. So that's 3,645 out of 4,175 responses. Now, I think that shows an overwhelming difference here. I know the idea of getting everyone in Somerset the same, or all the towns and villages the same, but Taunton and Wellington, I do believe, are very different areas, and clearly by the response, the people agree as well. On the 4th of June, Mike O'Dowd-Jones, who's with us today, I don't know if he's still there, but he was certainly earlier on, in his a memo, if you like, a letter to unitary councillors on email. He says, and I quote, "It is anticipated that Sunday charges would be introduced in October, pending the result of public consultation." Now, the part of that I want you as members to look at is pending the result of a public consultation. This consultation is overwhelmingly against. My questions then. Question one, if you choose to vote in favour of Sunday parking, I appreciate you're not voting for it today, you're merely recommending, I think, to executive on the 3rd of December. But if you do choose to vote in favour of Sunday parking charges, what is the point of this consultation, and why are we ignoring the overwhelming negative responses from the residents and businesses of Somerset, in particular Taunton? Question two, 70% of the consultation responses relate to car parking in Taunton. As I've said, 87% if you count Wellington into that. And I believe I'm correct in saying that none of those of you voting today actually represent Taunton. Please correct me if I'm wrong, and it's nothing against you guys. You clearly, but it does. One can be swayed, I think, by the locality that one represents. So clearly, as councillors representing our fine county, I'm confident that your vote will very much take into account the findings of the consultation, which, as a reminder, shows almost 93% either disagreeing or strongly agreeing. So could I please ask that you support and respect the outcome of the consultation? And thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for letting me go first. I do appreciate that.
Thank you, John, and thank you for pointing out that no members of this committee are from Taunton. That's a turn up for the book. I didn't realise that myself. I hadn't looked into that. Anyway, I think that doesn't require an immediate answer, so I'm going to go on to the next question, which has come from Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make a proposal, and I want to clear a number of things up. The first thing is that none of the money from car parks can be used as a general budget uplift. It has to be spent on the highways. They are the rules, and they're in black and white, and nobody in this consultation has told the public that. Absolutely nobody. The second thing I don't understand is that we have gone to consultation on Sunday parking, and yet we haven't gone to consultation on the other bits of the car parking proposal. And I want to make a proposal, and I have a seconder, that we have a vote that we take this back to consultation on the whole parking strategy, so that the people of Somerset have the opportunity to actually ask their parish councils, do you want free parking? In which case the parish council will pay for it. That is the parish council's decision. That is what we did in South Somerset. And I fully get, you're always going to get negative replies when you're asking questions like that. Liz wants to come back to me. Martin is seconding me. So Lovell.
Yes, Liz Lation.
Chair, if I may come in, our 151 officer is on the call, but just to short circuit that, about the use of car parking income. So this is what I have. Money from off-street parking and parking permits is general fund money. On-street parking, all fines, etc., are ring-fenced in a parking account. It is really important that this committee understands the legal position on use of income from car parking. So off-street parking and parking permits is general fund money. On-street parking and all fines linked to it are ring-fenced in a parking account.
I think the fines as well from off-street.
So, okay, so off-street parking charges, fines and parking permits are general fund money. No.
Thank you for that clarification.
Chair, if you want to go to the 151 officer, he is on the call. It might be better to hear from him than from me.
Councillor Andy Dingwall, I take this as a
This is not
necessary interruption.
Yeah, necessary interruption. It would be good to have clarification there whether or not there is current general funds being spent on car parks that would be offset by an increase in revenue, thereby freeing up general funds, because it kind of undermines the point you're trying to make. I think if revenue raised in these car parks offsets general fund spend that's currently allocated to car parks, it does, by proxy almost, free up general funds and create more revenue available there.
Do you want to answer that, Liz, or shall I go to Clive Heafy? Yeah. Hello, Clive. Thanks for coming in on the meeting. Could you?
Hello.
Did you get that question? Would you like to take that question to start with, and then go on to whatever it was you needed to say?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so just to clarify then that the council is required to maintain a parking account, and into that parking account goes all money from on-street parking and fines from on-street and off-street parking, and that money is ring-fenced to be used to A, cover the cost of the service, the cost of running it and collecting fines, etc., and B, then for road and transport improvements within Somerset. Any money collected from off-street parking, i.e. council car parks, not fines, just money collected through normal car parking charges, and any permits for areas around Somerset, I think we've probably got less than many areas, those can be used as general fund money, and there is no ring fence and no restriction on the way we use them. We can choose to make a restriction, but there's no need to do that under legislation, is my understanding.
Okay, thank you very much. Is that all you want to respond to at the moment?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah.
Okay. Would Councillor Dingwall thinks you haven't answered his question. I think Clive. Oh, he's gone off.
Sorry, I'm back again.
Yes, yeah. Could you just repeat the question, Andy, so that we can be clear?
Thank you.
So I understand the cash that's raised, the physical pounds that are raised from the elements that you've mentioned need to be kept within a ring-fenced car parking account. But in the holistic view of the council's budget, that money that's raised in that account would offset general fund spend that are currently allocated to highways and car parks, thereby creating a proxy revenue raise that could be used in general funds.
Not quite true, Councillor, in the sense that we only need to put into the parking account money from on-street parking and all fines that we collect around the council area. We do not need to put the money from council car parks into a parking account.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. That there's certain flexibility there, which no doubt will be taken advantage of. I don't think I'm out of order in saying that, but I think that's an understanding. Did you want to contradict that, John? I'm quite happy if you do. Councillor
No, I was
John
going to say that is general for all monies that go into ring-fenced accounts and everything. You have pots of monies and they do reflect on other things. That's not unusual.
Yeah, thank you very much.
If I may just come back on that, the parking account, it's a legal requirement that we publish a parking account so that the public can see the money we've collected from on-street parking and from fines and how we've used that money, and we maintain a parking account for that reason. So it is available for the public and for councillors to look at. All other monies then will flow into the general fund to be used to offset general expenditure.
Right, okay, I'll come to Councillor Burt then, please.
I don't know if this is a relevant question, but I'd like to know exactly how that splits. Because you just said one part of that the fine, the on-street parking, it goes into one fund and the off-street parking goes into another fund. So what is the proportion between the two?
I will need to come back to you, Councillor, with the precise proportions. I have got the figures somewhere, but not to hand at the moment. I think one of the issues is the council needs to do further work to make sure it bases its numbers on estimates at the moment, and it does need to do further work to make sure that it can more precisely allocate those numbers.
Thank you, Clive. I have a proposal on the table, but I think it probably, oh, sorry, is that Robbie? You've got your hand up. I don't want to take this proposal until I've heard a broader discussion. Rob Reed.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of things. We've got a ring fence for highways. First of all, simple question, does the highways include bus services? Can we use that money for that? And the second one, I do know, Councillor Wilkins introduced it. He said we got 3 strands he was looking at. I just wonder how they cross over and how one affects the other. I did note on the report that a lot of people said that they wouldn't use car parks on a Sunday, they would park elsewhere. So how does the displacement, has that been looked at? And what effects it would have?
Yeah, would anybody like to answer this one?
I can come back on that, Chair. So I think in answer to the question about buses, yes, the ring-fenced account can be used for highways and public transport interventions using that ring-fence fund. In terms of the 3 elements, they are separate in that they can be enacted separately. So one element is the Sunday parking that's currently free. One element is on-street parking, which is entirely separate and is to take a look at the existing parking space that's there and introduce more controls and charging regime to those on-street bays, and also to do some development work to look at what further curbside space there is around the county that we could usefully start to bring some controls over. And I think that would have benefits for the communities in those places. You know, not looking at it as an income generation idea specifically, but also looking at the benefits for the place in getting much more control over use of that space. And then the third element was there's a lot of free car parks which are free all week round, not specifically on Sunday, and to look at the implications with the communities of introducing charges in some of those. So those are the 3 elements. They are separate. I think going forward, as I said at the beginning, we really need a much clearer overarching policy and strategy for parking, which enables us to do more imaginative things with it for the benefit of the community. So I think these 3 elements were really largely about gaining control of parking space to then be able to make some decisions for the long term about how it's used. I'd characterise it in that way. Hopefully that answers the question, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I'll go to Bob Filmer first because you've had one. I'll come back to you, Howard. Bob Filmer.
Thank you, Chair. It was really just to sort of try and come back to the report in front of us today. I mean, one of the things that concern me is it makes reference to wanting to develop a consistent policy. I think it's worth remembering you can have a consistent policy without having a uniform policy across everywhere. One size doesn't necessarily fit all, and we already reflect that in parking policy in the fact that different car parks have different rates of charging. So it doesn't need to be a blanket policy across the whole of Somerset, and I think that's been reflected in the comments that have come back from the survey. The report we've had from WSP in Appendix 2, when you read through it, it's pretty heavily caveated in terms of its response and saying that it doesn't think there will be an impact, but it makes reference to things like some evidence in areas, little evidence in others, and lots of impact factors. And that's absolutely right. There are lots of factors that impact on how town centres operate, but the only factor that we're talking about changing is the parking charge. So I think it is right that we can focus on that. And also, again, when you read the Appendix 2, WSP quote from, I think it's page 138, says that insights from the public survey will therefore be required to help develop local intelligence as the potential impacts on the charging of Sundays. So even within their report, they refer to what's going to come back from the public consultation. And I think from what you've heard and what we've read, there is no doubt about what the public response has been. 93% of the members of the public have made their views very clear. It's 2/3 of the businesses are very concerned about the impact it's going to have on them. And bearing in mind the pressures that our high streets are under, both from the impact of the internet, government policies, and general difficulty in the economy at the moment, to take this time now to suddenly introduce extra charges on some of our vulnerable town centres seems to me to be wrong. So I hope that the scrutiny today will follow the line that in effect corporate and resources did back in February of saying we needed to find out the information, we needed to find the data. We've gone and done that now. And if we ignore that, I just wonder what the process was for in the first place.
Thanks very much, Bob. I've got Councillor Burt Hayward, please.
Yeah, just a quick question to Mike, and then in relation to the consultation. You said about imaginative ways of dealing with parking.
Sorry, can I interrupt? We've got a microphone on. Maybe Alan Bradford, actually. Alan, can you just put your microphone off? Thank you very much.
You're talking about imaginative ways of dealing with parking going ahead, but the one thing we didn't ask in this consultation is the number of people we've already stopped from parking within our county, because we've started to do apps and we've started to do ways that certain groups of people cannot access. I know of people who do not park in certain parts of our county anymore because they cannot park the car, because they can't put a bit of cash in a machine. So why didn't we ask that simple question as well? Because that's a further impact on the economics of certain towns. And what do you mean by imaginative ways of parking in the future?
Thanks, Martha. Mike.
Yeah, thank you. So I think these are the things that we really want to get into once we've established a more capacity within the parking team, and we've got an outline strategy to be working under, which are the things I talked about we want to do going forward. Then we can start to explore some of these issues. I think the payment mechanisms and accessibility is a really important issue, and is one which we will be looking at under the parking strategy going forward. So it's a really good point, and will be looked at. What I was meaning in terms of imaginative ways of using parking is that parking is a really important tool locally in order to manage behaviour, use of space. So we get a lot of residents concerned about people just parking in spaces outside their homes, for instance, and wanting to protect some of that space for their use. We have a lot of concerns about congestion in certain areas. The whole turnover issue, that it's probably better for a local economy to have more turnover of parking, so people coming along, parking for fairly shorter periods, spending money and then moving on, rather than using that space all day. So I think, and those are very local conversations and local decisions to make, and I think we really need to have the capacity to have those conversations, and then to put in place parking policies at a very detailed level in particular places that will enable the local issues to be understood and dealt with. So it's an important lever for us to gain control over. I think that's essentially what I'm saying, and this is the first stage in doing that.
Thank you very much. One point of information, I noticed there wasn't a huge response from the Mendip area, I don't think, although Street was mentioned. And certainly that was probably because Mendip brought in Sunday parking charges some time ago. At the time, it received considerable public opposition, to my memory. I have no statistics, but I think that ought to be borne in mind, that we already have some areas. And I believe Yeovil and South Somerset has had a different approach as well.
We did. We didn't have Sunday parking.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Andy, you look like you want to come back.
It's a kind of a clarification. I'm a little just confused. We've got a proposal on the table that, if it passes, I think much of this conversation becomes redundant, because we would put this off until I have many questions and a couple of points that I would like clearing up from the consultation and the follow-up report. But I don't know if they're worth diving into.
I think you made a very good point that we're actually, I'm waiting for the debate to resolve itself to some extent, but some of what you may have to say would be irrelevant if this proposal is passed. So I will. Dave hasn't spoken yet. He's got his hand up. I will let Dave speak, and then I'm going to go to this proposal. And sorry, just before you do, Councillor John Woodman, you. Oh, did you? Okay, sorry. Well, I'll take Dave as I've called him, and then go back to you.
Okay, thank you. And apologies, I've left the room, but so I've not caught all the debate. I believe if there is a vote, I've forfeited that. So I do realise, my apologies. I should have taken advantage of your break earlier, Martin. Lesson learned, especially as I'm getting older. But I feel I should comment. A few comments. I will do it briefly. I mean, I think the first thing is, you know, we all feel this is a difficult decision and push different ways. Wellington and their reluctance was, I have to say, a comment that chimed. In terms of the survey, someone earlier mentioned about people who ask for free beer. I have a funny feeling we've done the opposite here. And in particular, what we've not done is said, what should the council do about its really difficult financial position? And we're all painfully aware of that. We know the council's underfunded and the money to protect public services has to be found from somewhere. And a lot of difficult and unpleasant decisions are being taken. Possibly to some extent, this has to be it. It has to be one of those. I have got reservations about some of the charging proposals, but just noting a few points particularly relevant to this one on Sunday, and to some extent in general, we are seeking to encourage some modal shift. I can't help saying I was a little bit concerned earlier, the idea that people are travelling from all over Somerset to go to church in Taunton. I was feeling not many of them are actually really doing that, and possibly, you know, what was said there was a little bit mistaken, but nevertheless, if there is some of that there, you know, hopefully people are going to the local churches in their communities and not being sucked into the bright lights somewhere else. Seems a bit odd. Anyway, I have a feeling that is not quite significant, but you know, modal shift is. I note from the use of the Sunday charge, not many are residential users that are having to use car parks for charging. Most of the users were parking there for shopping and leisure reasons. It's sort of connected to that. I'll mention it in a moment. But I feel that should be noted. Just possibly on balance, sort of given all these things that I perhaps as indicated earlier, I slightly incline towards what Wellington said about reluctantly accepting in this case. Now, finally, I like the sound of what Henry was suggesting earlier. That made some sense to me, so I do wish to flag that up, even if I may not be able to vote on it. Similarly, what's being said, as I've understood it, on strategy and making sure we've understood our overall strategy, that does seem important. And then just to finish with, in that connection on strategy, one dilemma we end up with some of this is all the free retail parks where people can go and park for free. And there's a competition going on there, an unfair competition. And really, you know, our town centres are important and need to be used. And I really hope our strategy can find some way of addressing the unfair competition that the retail parks currently give. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. John Cook-Woodman, I'll going to put this proposal, I think we've talked it through fairly rigorously.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think the people of Somerset have been unequivocal about this, and they clearly said no. And they will see it as an anti-motorist attack by a cash-hungry council, and that's what it looks like on the surface, because it's not wanted. They've been absolutely clear in the consultation. It's from the people of Somerset. It's a clear no.
It does beg the question as to why we have consultations if we're not going to take note of them, of course. But that's the way things are. Does anybody want to come back on that before I move on? Okay, Andy, once more.
I've got lots more. specifically around the proposal that's being put here, the answer to the question, should this go back out to consultation, is why we have a very, very clear steer here. We could bring in other elements, but we have a very, very clear steer here. The risk if we go back out to consultation is we just kick this into the long grass, when actually we need to be going back as a recommendation from scrutiny with a steer to the executive as to whether or not to accept this policy, rather than a steer to the executive to say knock this down the road another 6 months while we go out to further consultation.
I just want clarification on this as well. I mean, we only have the power to recommend. Is that at this committee? I mean, what we do here, we are giving an opinion. I just remind you of that, though. The executive is at liberty to do what it wants with our opinion. Okay, I'm taking that as being a speech against the motion. I'm going to put the I'm going to ask Henry to put the proposal again, which, sorry. Oh, Rob, I didn't see you. Do come in if it's on that specific matter.
Sorry, just clarification, really. The proposal to go back out again to consultation, does this mean we're going to kick the whole thing down the road? If it does, it will have a financial impact. Has that been taken into account?
I think it would be useful, Chair, if Councillor Hobhouse could repeat the proposal for members to consider.
Mr. Chairman, we have gone out to consultation on Sunday trading. We've not gone out to consultation about what Rob brought up. Should all of car parks be the same price? We haven't gone out to consultation about whether the town and parish councils can pay for free car parking in their community, which is what we had in South Somerset, but none of the other districts had that particular option. My point is not that we've lost, and I fully agree with you, John, well, the wrong word, sorry, not that the public don't want Sunday parking. This is about actually the whole parking policy and asking the question about what we should have as a parking policy, not just Sunday.
Martin Lovell, are you'll second that proposal?
Sorry. That's a lot of words for. Sorry, Councillor. I need it a bit more concise than that, because that wasn't clear as to what members will be voting on.
To send back the consultation, the consultation on the whole parking policy, not simply the Sunday issue.
Sorry, the parking policy, as Mike mentioned earlier, doesn't exist, and certainly doesn't exist in a paper that we've had sight of for today's meeting in order for us to vote on whether or not it should go to consultation. We only have the Sunday consultation. We only have the Sunday policy, and we have a very clear steer. We can do with that what we want, but we don't have the information, I think, to recommend going back out to consultation. I certainly don't. Sorry.
Can I just add a few thoughts to this as well? So I think the question was made about would that deferral create a budget pressure? And yes, it would. Obviously, we've made financial assumptions around the implications of these changes, and those are built into the budget. So essentially, the longer this is left, that pressure will sit there as unresolved. So we may then. I think clarity on the matter would be helpful in order for financial planning. That said, obviously we can do things differently if that's something the executive wish us to do. Having heard from you, I would say that the consultation on this has been a fairly straightforward question, and as I said at the beginning, it's something where you can implement in those places that don't currently have charges fairly easily. It's a well-defined thing. We're just going to introduce what we have on a Saturday, on a Sunday. I think the consultations that we might get into following on from the wider strategy will be much more localized and nuanced around particular places within the county, and there may, we may find different solutions within the overall consistency of having a parking regime. There will be localized, differences, I think. So it feels like this is a difficult one to sort of wrap into that further consultation process, because we've asked a fairly straightforward question. The implementation would be a kind of county-wide change, whereas the rest of it will probably be more localized discussion, and implementation may take place on different timescales, if you see what I mean. So just worth thinking about. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I think that's clear. I think I have to put this proposal, accepting the reservations you have. You can vote against it if you have reservations. So I'm going to put the proposal, which in my terms, and Henry correct me, is to send back to consultation, to send this back to be consulted on again as a whole parking policy, not just Sunday.
Are you comfortable?
Okay. That's seconded. Could you raise your hands if you're in favour of that proposal, please? Thank you. 3. And against? 4. Okay, that's turned. That proposal is declined. Does anybody have an alternative proposal to put in regard to this? Steve Ashton.
I don't have an alternative proposal, but I wanted to justify my reasons. I don't see, it's like turkeys voting for Christmas. I don't see further consultation on asking if you want to pay more is going to yield any different results than the current consultation. I also feel the current consultation really brings consultation to disrepute, because we knew what the result was going to be before it came along, and we just wasted time having the consultation. It's rather like the NHS consultations that are completely utter waste of time. I believe absolutely what Councillor Fulmer said about consistency. I don't believe this is about consistency. It's about raising money. That's exactly what it is. It's complete nonsense about pretending it's consistency. And individual areas really have different pressures on their car parks, and actually applying a consistent rule across them doesn't make sense either. It's really the competition. The other thing is, another point is enforcement, because yes, there's costs of actually enforcement on the Sundays, which is included in here, but what they'll do is they'll pressurize illegal parking elsewhere, which will not be enforced by these people. So I think the cost of enforcement will be greater, and also the revenue will probably be less in certain areas where the pressure is great.
Yes, thank you. Councillor Cook-Woodden.
Thank you very much. I'd like to propose that we, as per the consultation, we reject the Sunday parking charge proposal.
You have a seconder?
I do.
Anybody want to yes, Councillor Burt. Yes, I think I can take questions on that. We have a proposal and a seconder.
This is the question on Appendix 1. Getting the detail of this, because as you said, whatever we do today, it is only a recommendation, and the executive will take their decision. You can guess what that might be. But I'm just a bit curious as to why I couldn't see in any other car parks. And Councillor Hunt made the comment about whether we come from Taunton or not. We've got cars, we can shop in Taunton, and I do. I also shop in Yeovil. And perhaps the reason for the lack of responses in Yeovil is because Yeovil is struggling and making it very, very difficult to actually survive some of those businesses in Yeovil, and you know what it's like if you've been there. So why in Yeovil, on this detailed charging, are we suddenly taking this opportunity to increase the charges on Saturdays and Sundays? Because I'm opposed to this, because I can't see how this can possibly help footfall in any town at all. And the harmonisation argument is just a nonsense, because to pretend that you can move to a different car park because it's going to be cheaper is a load of nonsense. You saw the responses there from Watch It. Why do you go to Watch It? You don't go to Watch It for shopping. You go to Watch It for the harbour. You go to Watch It for the railway. Why do you go to Taunton? You go to Taunton for shopping. Okay, so you come to car parks for different reasons. So that makes no sense. But why in Yeovil that we decided when Saturday parking was £3.20 all day, that now in this brave new world of charging all through the week, we're going to increase the cost, because I can't see that anywhere else. So why in a town that is definitely struggling to keep its retail, to keep its footfall, or on top of charging, we want to increase the cost from what they were used to before? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm leaving that open for a reply. If Mike or anybody wants to reply.
I don't have the answer to hand. It was a point of detail I'll need to look into just to understand why that figure was like it is. But yeah, I can come back and confirm why that was. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Lovell.
Chair, just to say that I shall vote against this motion on the grounds that where I come from, my part of Somerset, Sunday charging is well established. I'm not aware of presenting a problem, and I think there's a lot to explore, a lot of lessons to be learned from that. There are variabilities in that charging within the district, as we all know, because there are some places are honeypots, some aren't, but there is charging, and therefore I think what's happening in the East Division needs to be looked at to see why it can't apply elsewhere. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's a fair point there. You like me are in the eastern area of Somerset. We've had it for some time. It wasn't deemed to be ideal. I don't know what the outcome of that is. I know it was unpopular at the time. Whether people will use street parking instead, I couldn't really say. It'd be good to have some information on that. But I also, if I may say, I think there is. I wouldn't completely deny the fact that I think there is some credibility in having, if you're going to have Sunday parking in a unified council, that it is throughout the. I think there is an argument there, which I think has been undermined somewhat across the council. That's an argument that could be put, not necessarily by me, but I think it's a fair one to put forward. We have a proposal which we reject Sunday parking policy that's been presented to us, and that's Councillor Cook-Woodman and Councillor Dingwaller's seconding that. Could you raise your hands if you support that proposal, please? And put your hands up if you are against that proposal, please. That's carried by 4 votes to 3. Abstentions? Well, I'm abstaining as chair, and Dave has to abstain because he left the room. That's carried. Therefore, the question is that the end of the debate? I think it probably is. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm just a bit, we don't normally go to votes, and when we do, I'm quite stunned that we've made a decision, and we've made a decision before 1 o'clock, which is magnificent from that point of view. So that's carried. Thank you very much. Agenda item 9, items for information. Is there anything for information? Nothing. So closing. Thank you all very much for attending this morning. The next meeting will be quite soon on the 4th of December. That's a Thursday at 10 o'clock here in the lateral room. And I look forward to seeing you all then for another jam-packed agenda.
Thank you, Martin.